You're losing a war that you don't even know you're fighting. And the enemy is winning because you keep supplying it with ammunition every time you think a negative thought. You're handing your enemy another bullet to use against you. Every time you doubt yourself, you're giving your opposition another weapon to destroy your confidence. Every time you focus on what's wrong instead of what's possible, you're literally arming the very force that's designed to keep you defeated. The battlefield is your mind. The enemy is your own thinking. And you've been fighting on the wrong side of your own war right now. As you sit there listening to me, there's a war happening inside your head. And most of you don't even know it's taking place. The most sophisticated battlefield on earth isn't in some foreign country or on some distant shore. It's right between your ears. Your mind is the most powerful weapon you will ever possess. But here's the tragedy. Most people have turned that weapon against themselves. You want to know why some people succeed while others fail? It has nothing to do with their background, their education, or their circumstances. It has everything to do with what's happening in that 3-pound universe sitting on top of their shoulders. Your mind is either your greatest asset or your most dangerous enemy. There is no middle ground. Listen to me carefully. Every single day, you wake up and enter a battlefield. The enemy isn't out there trying to stop you. The enemy is in here, whispering lies, creating doubt, manufacturing fear, and convincing you that you're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. That voice in your head that tells you to quit, to settle, to accept mediocrity. That's not you talking. That's the enemy using your own mind against you. Let me tell you about someone who understood this war better than most. Her name was Rosa Martinez. Rosa grew up in a neighborhood where gunshots were the lullabies and drug dealers were the role models. At 16, she was pregnant and living in a one-room apartment with her baby girl. Surviving on government assistance, everyone around her said the same thing. Rosa, this is your life. Accept it. This is as good as it gets for girls like you. But Rosa had something different. She had learned to recognize the real enemy. Every morning she would wake up and hear 2 voices in her head. The first voice, the enemy, would say, you're trapped, you're poor, you're uneducated, you're going to be stuck here forever just like your mother and your grandmother. But Rosa learned to identify that voice as the enemy and she declared war on it. The second voice, her real voice, would whisper, you're capable of more, you can learn, you can grow, you can create a different life. Rosa made a decision that changed everything. She decided to make her mind her weapon instead of her prison. Every single day, Rosa would wake up at 5 in the morning before her baby girl woke up, and she would spend 30 minutes reading books from the library, not entertainment books, not romance novels, books about business, about success, about people who had overcome impossible odds. She was programming her mind like a computer, installing new software to replace the virus of negative thinking that had been corrupted by her environment. The people around her thought she was crazy. Rosa, why are you wasting your time reading those books? You need to focus on reality. But Rosa understood something they didn't. The reality you see around you is not permanent. The reality you see around you is simply the result of the thoughts that came before her. For 3 years, Rosa kept fighting the battle in her mind. She kept reading, she kept learning, she kept programming her weapon. And slowly, something began to change. Not her circumstances at first. Her circumstances were still the same. What changed was her internal programming. She started to see opportunities where others saw obstacles. She started to see possibilities where others saw dead ends. At 19, Rosa started a small cleaning business with $200 she had saved. Nothing glamorous, just her, a bucket, and a dream. But her mind was programmed differently now. Where others saw a simple cleaning job, Rosa saw a service business. Where others saw buildings to clean, Rosa saw contracts to win. Where others saw competition, Rosa saw a market opportunity today. Rosa Martinez owns a cleaning company that employs over 300 people and generates millions of dollars in revenue every year. She owns property in 3 different states. She's put her daughter through college. She's created jobs for hundreds of families in her community. But here's what's most important. She's living proof that your mind is a weapon. And the first enemy you must defeat is the negativity that tries to make you settle for less than your potential. Rosa didn't change her circumstances by changing her circumstances. Rosa changed her circumstances by changing her mind. She won the war that was happening between her ears. And when she won that war, everything else fell into place. You see? Your mind is like a computer. Whatever you program into it, it will execute. If you program it with thoughts of limitation, fear, and impossibility, it will find ways to make those thoughts reality. If you program it with thoughts of potential, opportunity, and possibility, it will find ways to make those thoughts reality too. The problem is that most people have been programmed by their environment, by their past, by their circumstances, by other people's opinions, and by their own fears. They're walking around with mental software that's designed to keep them small, keep them safe, and keep them stuck. But you have the power to reprogram your mind. You have the power to turn your greatest enemy into your greatest ally. You have the power to transform your mind from a weapon pointed at yourself into a weapon pointed at every obstacle, every challenge, and every limitation that stands between you and your destiny. The battle is real. The enemy is real. But the victory is available to anyone who's willing to fight for it. Your mind is waiting to be weaponized for your success. The question is, are you ready to kill the negativity first? Now, let me tell you something that will shock you. Your brain produces approximately 60,000 thoughts per day. 60,000. That means every single day you have 60,000 opportunities to either build yourself up or tear yourself down. Every single day. You have 60,000 chances to either move closer to your dreams or further away from them. But here's the devastating truth that most people don't understand. If you're not intentionally choosing your thoughts, your mind becomes a poison factory. It starts manufacturing toxic thoughts automatically, without your permission, without your awareness, and definitely without your best interests at heart. You see, your brain has a built-in survival mechanism that's designed to keep you alive, but it's also designed to keep you small. This mechanism is constantly scanning for danger, constantly looking for threats, constantly preparing for the worst case scenario. It's like having a paranoid security guard living in your head who sees every opportunity as a potential disaster. This is why negative thoughts multiply faster than positive ones. This is why fear spreads quicker than courage. This is why doubt grows stronger than confidence. Your brain is literally wired to produce more negative thoughts than positive ones. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, the person who expected the worst was more likely to survive. But we're not living in caves anymore. We're not running from wild animals. Yet our brains are still operating with that same primitive programming, turning our minds into factories that mass produce fear, worry, anxiety, and self-doubt. Let me tell you about David Kim, a brilliant engineer who almost lost everything because he didn't understand how his mental poison factory was destroying his life. David had graduated at the top of his class from one of the most prestigious engineering schools in the country. He had landed a high-paying job at a major corporation. From the outside, David looked like success, but inside David's mind, the poison factory was working overtime. Every morning, David would wake up and the first thing his mind would produce was worry. What if I make a mistake today? What if my boss thinks I'm incompetent? What if I'm not as smart as everyone thinks I am? What if they find out I don't belong here? David didn't realize it. But every one of these toxic thoughts was creating a chemical reaction in his body. Every worry was releasing stress hormones. Every fear was activating his nervous system. Every doubt was programming his subconscious mind to look for evidence that he was inadequate. The poison factory in David's mind was running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, producing thoughts that were literally poisoning his potential. And like any poison, the effects were cumulative. The more toxic thoughts David allowed his mind to produce, the more his confidence eroded. The more his confidence eroded, the more mistakes he made. The more mistakes he made, the more his fears seemed justified. Within 2 years, David had been passed over for 3 promotions. His supervisor had put him on a performance improvement plan. His colleagues had stopped inviting him to important meetings. David's toxic thoughts had become his toxic reality. One day, David was sitting in his car in the company parking lot, holding a resignation letter, ready to quit. He had convinced himself that he wasn't cut out for engineering, that he had been fooling himself, that he should just accept defeat and find something easier. But something made David pause. He started paying attention to the thoughts running through his mind. And for the first time, he realized that the voice in his head wasn't giving him accurate information. It was giving him the same recycled fears, the same repetitive doubts, the same manufactured anxieties that had been playing on repeat for months. David made a decision that saved his career and changed his life. He decided to shut down the poison factory. He realized that he had been giving his mind permission to produce toxic thoughts without any quality control, without any filtering system, without any conscious oversight. David started treating his mind like a factory that he owned and operated. If a thought didn't serve his purpose, if a thought didn't move him toward his goals, if a thought didn't make him stronger, smarter, or better, he would reject it like a defective product coming off an assembly line. Within 6 months, David had not only kept his job, but had been promoted to team leader. Within a year, he was heading up the most important project in his department. Within 2 years, he had been recruited by another company with a salary that was double what he had been making. What changed? David's circumstances? No. David's abilities? No. David's education? No. What changed was David's decision to stop operating a poison factory in his mind and start operating a power plant instead. Your thoughts are not just random mental events. Your thoughts are the raw materials that your life is built from. If you're feeding your mind poison, your life will be poisoned. If you're feeding your mind power, your life will be powerful. The choice is yours. But you must make it consciously, intentionally, and repeatedly every single day. Here's what you need to understand. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts. There's a difference. And that difference will determine whether you live as a slave to your mind or as the master of your destiny. Most people think they are their thoughts. When a negative thought comes into their mind, they automatically accept it as truth. When fear whispers in their ear, they assume it's providing accurate information. When doubt starts talking, they listen like it's their trusted advisor. But this is the biggest lie you've ever been told. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one who can choose to listen to that voice or reject it. You are not the thoughts that pop into your mind. You are the commander who can accept those thoughts or dismiss them. You are not a victim of your mental patterns. You are the architect who can redesign them. Let me tell you about Angela Washington, a woman who discovered this truth when her life was falling apart. Angela had been married for 15 years when her husband left her for another woman. In one day, her world collapsed. She lost her marriage, her home, her financial security, and her sense of identity. For months, Angela's mind became a battlefield of destructive thoughts. I'm not good enough. I'm too old to start over. No one will ever love me again. I wasted 15 years of my life. I should have seen this coming. I'm a failure as a wife and as a woman. These thoughts came fast and furious. And at first, Angela believed every single one of them. She was drowning in an ocean of mental poison, and she couldn't see any way to the surface. But one day, something shifted. Angela was sitting in her empty apartment, crying, when she suddenly heard herself thinking, I'll never be happy again. And for the first time, instead of accepting that thought, she questioned it. She asked herself, who said that? Where did that thought come from? Is that really true? In that moment, Angela realized something profound. She realized that there was a part of her that was watching her thoughts, observing her mental patterns. And that part of her was separate from the thoughts themselves. That part of her was the real Angela, the commander, the decision maker, the one with the power to choose. Angela started practicing what I call thought interception. Every time a negative thought would try to enter her mind, she would catch it at the door like a security guard. She would examine it, question it, and decide whether to let it in or send it away. When the thought, I'm too old to start over, would knock on the door of her mind, Angela would intercept it and say, that's not true. I have wisdom, experience, and decades of life ahead of me. When the thought, no one will ever love me again, would try to enter, she would stop it and replace it with, I am worthy of love. And the right person will recognize that. Angela learned that she didn't have to be passive in her own mind. She didn't have to accept every thought that showed up. She could be the commander of her mental army, choosing which thoughts to deploy and which thoughts to discharge. Within a year, Angela had started her own consulting business. Within 2 years, she was earning more money than she'd ever made in her life. Within 3 years, she met and married a man who loved and respected her more than her first husband ever had. Angela's circumstances didn't change because her circumstances changed. Angela's circumstances changed because she took command of her mind. She stopped being a victim of her thoughts and became the general of her mental army. You have the same power. You have the same choice. You can continue to let random thoughts control your life, or you can step into your role as the commander of your mind. Now that you understand you're the commander, let me teach you how to turn your mind into a precision weapon that works for you instead of against you. Success isn't an accident. It's not luck. It's not about being in the right place at the right time. Success is the inevitable result of consistently thinking the right thoughts in the right way. Successful people don't think differently because they're successful. They're successful because they think differently. They've learned to weaponize their minds, to automatically scan for opportunities instead of obstacles, solutions instead of problems, possibilities instead of limitations. Your mind is like a heat-seeking missile. Whatever you program it to look for, it will find. If you program it to look for reasons why you can't succeed, it will find thousands of them. If you program it to look for ways you can succeed, it will find those too. The question is, what are you programming your mental weapon to target? Listen to me carefully. Your internal dialogue is either your secret weapon or your hidden saboteur. Most people have an internal dialogue that sounds like their worst enemy. They wake up in the morning and immediately start attacking themselves. I'm so tired. I don't want to go to work. This day is going to be terrible. I have too much to do. I'm never going to get caught up. But successful people have weaponized their internal dialogue to work for them. They wake up and their mind automatically starts generating empowering thoughts. I'm ready for today's challenges. I'm going to find ways to add value. I'm going to solve problems that others can't solve. I'm going to make today count. Let me tell you about Marcus Thompson, a man who transformed his entire life by weaponizing his internal dialogue. Marcus was working in a factory, making barely enough money to pay his bills. He had been there for 12 years, doing the same job, getting the same small raises, watching his dreams shrink a little more each year. But Marcus made a decision that changed everything. he decided to reprogram his mental weapon. Instead of thinking like a factory worker, he started thinking like a business owner. Instead of complaining about his job, he started studying it. Instead of watching the clock, he started watching for improvements every day. Marcus would arrive at work 30 minutes early and stay 30 minutes late. Not because he had to, but because he was using that time to weaponize his mind. He would walk through the factory floor asking himself different questions. Not how can I get through another day, but how can we make this process more efficient? How can we reduce waste? How can we improve quality? Marcus started keeping a notebook where he would write down every improvement idea that came to him. Within 3 months, he had filled that notebook with dozens of cost-saving suggestions. He presented these ideas to his supervisor. And within 6 months, Marcus had been promoted to team leader. But Marcus didn't stop there. He kept weaponizing his mind, kept asking better questions, kept looking for bigger opportunities. He started thinking like an entrepreneur while still working as an employee. He began studying the business, understanding the industry, learning about the competition. 2 years later, Marcus left the factory and started his own manufacturing company. He took everything he had learned, every process he had studied, every improvement he had identified, and he built a business around it. Today, Marcus employs over 50 people and generates more revenue in a month than he used to make in a year. What changed Marcus's life wasn't his circumstances. What changed his life was his decision to weaponize his mind. He stopped using his mental capacity to complain about his situation and started using it to create his solution. He transformed his mind from a weapon of mass destruction into a weapon of mass construction. Now I want to talk to you about what it means to live as a mental warrior every single day of your life. Because understanding these principles is one thing, but living them consistently is what separates those who transform their lives from those who simply get motivated for a few days and then return to their old patterns. A mental warrior understands that the battle never ends. Every day, you wake up and you have to choose whether you're going to command your mind or let your mind command you. Every morning, you face the same decision. Will I be the general of my thoughts today, or will I be a prisoner of them? Most people think that once they learn these principles, the negative thoughts will stop coming. That's not how it works. The negative thoughts will keep coming for the rest of your life. What changes is your response to them. What changes is your ability to recognize them, intercept them, and replace them with thoughts that serve your purpose. And let me tell you about Lisa Rodriguez, and I want you to pay close attention to her story because it shows you what it looks like to live as a mental warrior over the long term. Lisa wasn't always a warrior. In fact, for the first 35 years of her life, she was completely defeated by her own mind. Lisa grew up in a home where she was constantly criticized. Her father told her she was stupid. Her mother told her she was ugly. Her teachers told her she would never amount to anything. By the time Lisa became an adult, these voices had moved inside her head, and they were louder than any external voice she would ever hear. Now, Lisa tried college, but dropped out after one semester because the voice in her head kept telling her she wasn't smart enough. She tried starting a business, but quit after 3 months because the voice kept saying she didn't have what it takes. She tried relationships, but sabotaged every one of them because the voice kept whispering that no one could really love her. For 35 years, Lisa lived as a prisoner in her own mind. She had potential. She had dreams. She had talents. But they were all locked away behind bars made of toxic thoughts. Lisa wasn't living. She was just surviving. Day after day, defeated by an enemy she couldn't even see. But sometimes rock bottom becomes the foundation for your greatest comeback. Lisa's rock bottom came when she lost her job, her apartment, and found herself sleeping in her car with her 8-year-old daughter. That night, sitting in that car with her little girl sleeping beside her, Lisa made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. She decided she was done being defeated by her own mind. She decided she was done letting the voices from her past determine the direction of her future. She decided she was going to become a mental warrior, not just for herself, but for her daughter, who was watching and learning from everything she did. Lisa started her transformation with one simple practice. Every morning, before her daughter woke up, she would sit in that car and spend 15 minutes deliberately choosing her thoughts for the day. She would reject every thought that made her weak and accept only thoughts that made her strong. When the old voice would say, "You're a failure, look where you ended up," Lisa would intercept that thought and replace it with, "I'm exactly where I need to be to build the life my daughter deserves." When the voice would say, "You don't have any skills," she would counter with, "I have the ability to learn any skill I need." This wasn't positive thinking. This was mental warfare. Lisa was literally fighting for her mind every single morning. And slowly, she started winning those battles. Lisa got a job at a call center. It wasn't glamorous, but she approached it like a mental warrior. Instead of thinking, this is just a job, she thought, this is my training ground. I'm going to learn everything I can about customer service, about communication, about problem solving. Within 6 months, she was the top performer in her department. But Lisa didn't stop there. She kept fighting the mental battles. When opportunities for promotion came up, the old voice would try to resurface. "You're not qualified. You don't have experience. They'll never choose you." But Lisa had become skilled at intercepting these thoughts. She would replace them with, "I may not have the experience yet, but I have the desire to learn and the commitment to excel." Lisa got promoted to supervisor, then to manager, then to director. But the real test of her mental warrior training came 7 years later, when she decided to start her own customer service consulting company. The negative voices came back stronger than ever. "You've never run a business. You don't have connections. You don't have capital. You're going to fail and embarrass yourself." These thoughts came like a flood, trying to wash away years of progress. But Lisa had become a seasoned mental warrior. She had developed what I call mental muscle memory. Her response to negative thoughts had become automatic. She would acknowledge the thoughts, thank them for trying to protect her, and then systematically replace each one with a thought that empowered her to move forward. "I've never run a business, but I can learn. I don't have connections yet, but I can build them. I don't have capital, but I can start small and grow. I might face challenges, but I can overcome them today." Lisa's consulting company works with Fortune 500 companies across the country. She owns 3 homes, has put her daughter through college, and employs 12 people. But more importantly, she has become living proof that you can defeat any enemy when you learn to win the war that happens between your ears. Lisa's daughter is now 25 years old, and she's never heard her mother speak a negative word about herself or her possibilities. That little girl who once slept in a car with her defeated mother is now a confident young woman who approaches every challenge with the mindset of a mental warrior. You see, when you transform your mind, you don't just change your own life, you change the lives of everyone around you. You become a living example of what's possible when someone refuses to let their thoughts become their prison. Your mind is the most powerful weapon you will ever possess. The question is not whether you have this weapon. You do. The question is whether you will learn to use it or whether you will allow it to be used against you. Every day, you have a choice. You can wake up and let your mind run wild, producing whatever thoughts it wants to produce. Or you can wake up and take command, deliberately choosing thoughts that move you toward your destiny instead of away from it. The battle for your mind is the most important battle you will ever fight. It's a battle you can win, but only if you decide to become a warrior. Only if you decide that your future is more important than your fears. Only if you decide that your dreams deserve a fighting chance. The weapon is in your hands. The choice is yours. The time is now. Kill the negativity first and watch as your life transforms from the inside out.